coach of the number 5 seed Texas Longhorns, Steve Sarkisian, and head coach of the number 4 seed and Big 12 champion Arizona State Sun Devils, Kenny Dillingham. Coaches, welcome. Thanks for being here. We appreciate your time. We'll start with an opening statement from each coach. When we get to questions and answers, raise your hand. I'll recognize you. We'll get a wireless mic runner to you. Please give us your name and outlet and then to whom you're addressing your question. Coach Sarkisian, we'll start with you. If you could just give us an opening comment about just how preparations have gone so far and what your bowl experience has been like.
Yeah, I would say first of all, I'd love to first of all acknowledge the Peach Bowl, the job they've done. It's been first class all the way through. Our staff, our players have enjoyed the experience. Granted, being in the playoff, it's a bit of an abbreviated bowl experience, but I think they've done a fantastic job of making this experience one that our players really have enjoyed. The hospitality, facilities, everything has been tremendous. Thank you. As far as the ball game goes, feels kind of like we're just kind of staying the course of what's been going on, the way this season has gone, with starting July 31st with our first ball game, or excuse me, August 31st, and then 2 byes along the way, a conference championship, these 10 days in between games. So we've just been kind of riding the wave and enjoying the journey. And this is another great opportunity for us. Humbled and honored to be here representing the Southeastern Conference in the CFP against a great opponent. I've got a ton of respect for Coach Dillingham, the job he's done at Arizona State, the way their team has continually improved throughout the season. The last couple months, they've been playing as good as anybody in the country. Tall task. And so looking forward to the opportunity. And like I said, humbled and honored to be here.
All right. Coach Dillingham, same question for you. Bowl preparations and what your experience has been like so far.
Yeah, once again, I'd like to thank the Peach Bowl. Our guys are having the time of their life right now, and like I told them, they need to enjoy the moments in between the work, and I think they're doing that. And so they're having a moment that they'll remember for the rest of their lives, which was the purpose of these bowl games, were to make memories that people carry on forever. And I think our team is doing that leading up to the game. In terms of the game goes, our guys are putting in work. That's what they know. We're going to face, one of the best teams in the country, if not the best team in the country, coached by arguably the best offensive coach in the country, sitting next to me. And it's a really tall task for our guys. But at the same token, if you're a competitor, you want to compete versus the very best in the best environments. And I think that's exactly what we get to do here tomorrow, is compete versus the very best in the Peach Bowl, which is one of the best environments. So we're excited as a football team. We're excited as a football program.
All right. Thanks, coaches. All right. We'll go ahead and open it to questions. Let's go, let's see, first right here, row 4 on the aisle. We'll take our first question from here.
Thanks. Greg Moore, Arizona Republic. Good to see both of you guys. I know that coaches tend to be part of a small fraternity. Do you guys know each other, have history beyond this game? Do you guys remember meeting each other, and have you kind of kept your eyes on each other throughout your various trajectories?
Oddly enough, we were just talking about that. I've known of Kenny for quite some time. I always kind of follow the offensive young, hot minds out there, try to stay fresh to what we do, and ton of respect for him and a couple of the guys that he's worked with in his time and the connections that we've had. Oddly enough, we haven't spent a ton of time together, but I think there's some natural connections there. So maybe after this one, we'll hang out a little bit more.
Yeah, same thing. We haven't spent a lot of time together, but I've been watching what he's done from afar. He was one of the first guys to do FIB, formation of the boundary, and really build plans around it and build systems around it. So he's always been kind of ahead of the curve offensively, and it's somebody if you're an offensive guy and want to watch, you definitely want to watch what he's doing, because he's also studying. He's not a guy who's going to be stagnant. So when you're watching him, if you're a year behind him, you're about 3 years ahead of everybody else. So definitely a guy you want to watch offensively.
All right, next we'll go right here in the front row on the right.
Kirk Bowles from the Houston Chronicle. Steve, how confident are you that you've got the offensive kinks, worked out in the Clemson game, and what's your degree of confidence you can get 60 minutes from Isaiah Bond and Cam Williams?
Yeah, I felt probably for about the last month and a half now, one of the things we needed to address was the running game, and I really felt like we addressed it well, and we've been moving the ball pretty efficiently. the SEC championship game was, in my opinion, a little bit of an anomaly where we got away from it and it just didn't come to fruition the way we would have liked. But if you look at the last month and a half of the season, I think our balance is where it needs to be. Ultimately for us, it's about finishing drives. And when we get into the red area of putting the ball in the end zone, it's one thing to have a bunch of yards and explosive plays, but you need points to win. And so that's going to be the challenge in this game, no differently. I think we'll find some balance there. With IB and Cam, again, I think, they both have been practicing. They both have been improving. To some degree, it's how do you feel on game day, right? When the adrenaline really kicks in, what does that feel like for a competitor? And then we got to make really good decisions with those guys, if they play and how much and to what degree. But I give them both a lot of credit. They've been working. Our medical staff's done a great job of kind of building them towards this. And not only them, we've had a few guys. Jake Majors finally, feel good about where he's at. Quinn has steadily been improving. So, again, at this juncture of the season, game number 15, everybody's got bumps and bruises. And so we're just trying to get our guys as healthy as we can.
Okay, next over here, row 4 on the far left.
Andrea Adelson, ESPN.com. Steve, as a follow-up to the run game, you had early adversity in August when you had a couple of guys go down. How would you describe the development that you've seen from Jaden, Trey, and Jarek to get you to the point where you have been able to put forth a powerful run game?
Yeah, that was you never like injuries to occur, and to some degree, it was almost a blessing that they did occur in training camp because it gave us more extended time to work with Trey and Jaden and Jarek. And they've all had their, I guess, somewhat ups and downs throughout the season where guys have to grow. And I think, again, that's a credit to Coach Choice and all of our coaches of continuing trying to work with our players. We had some issues holding on to the ball, and nobody gave up on anybody, and we continued to work, and we got confidence back. I think Trey Wisner, we found out a lot about him, his ability to kind of carry the load. You don't go into Kyle Field and carry it 30-something times, in that physical and that environment if you can't handle it. And so at the end of the day, I think we found a good mix with all three of those guys, and we're going to need all three to be effective as an offense.
All right, next we'll go right here in front row on the right.
Tom Boy Richardson from Orange Bloods. Question for both of you coaches. You guys do have something in common, which is you didn't have the results you wanted in year one, but yet you guys still trust the process that you would eventually have the success. Can you just talk about getting past year one, trusting the process when you don't see the results, and then basically that journey to where you are now?
All right, Coach Dillingham, I'll start with you.
I just think you have to have a belief in what you're doing. And, I know Coach Sarkisian and myself, we've both been blessed to be around really good people. And you've seen a process that's been successful. You've seen what it looks like. And you've got to have a belief that if you stay the course, eventually it'll turn. And I know for me, that was always, and for us as a program, that was always the vision and the plan was, it may not look good now, but if you stay the course and you stay the course and you stay true to the principles that you believe in and what a successful program looks like, eventually you'll turn the corner. And I think that's where we're at is, we're still trying to get better every single day, but at the same time, I think us staying the course has definitely helped us get to where we are right now.
I want to reiterate a lot of what Coach is saying because I think that's true. I think a lot of times, I've got a great mentor in Pete Carroll, and I remember taking the job, and I remember us struggling through that first year and losing games in the second half. We'd have leads, and we weren't finishing the way we would have liked. And I was venting to him, I remember on one Sunday night, just about, man, I feel like if I would just go and do some of the things they did before, that we might have a little bit more success and our record might be a little bit different. He said, well, that's probably true. But he said at the end of the day, if you want to go down that road, you better expect similar results to what they were before. Or if you really believe in what you do, you're going to have some rough waters for a while, but in the end, you'll find better results than what was there before. And so staying true to the belief, I think, is critical. But I also think being adaptable to the times for us. When we started, there was no transfer portal, there was no NIL. And along this journey in 4 years, college football has changed a ton. And I think being adaptable to the times, I think for ASU, same thing. Like adapting to what college football is now and not sitting around complaining about it. I've heard plenty of Coach Dillingham's comments about a lot of other coaches get up here and complain about what college football is about right now. And I think the two of us have been guys that have been on the forefront of here's the rules, let's maximize the opportunities that we have to enhance our roster, to enhance our level of play, to put the best team out there that we can. And so, but yeah, it's definitely a journey. You know, nobody likes to lose, especially in Austin.
All right, next question, row 3 on the left.
Josh Newman from LoneStarLive.com. Steve, you have a number of early enrollee freshmen here going through this week. What are the benefits of having the young guys, the guys who have not even been on campus, gone to class yet? What's the benefit of
The first
of them being
benefit is we have 9 guys enter the portal already, and only 2 have stayed with us. And so, and the majority of those guys were off our defensive front. So from a scout team perspective, we needed some bodies to help us with practice. So that was the very first benefit. I think the second benefit for those kids, they're awesome humans. And I think the exposure they're getting now to our team, rapport, they're staying active. We're getting a little bit of a sense and a feel for what they're about. But again, the biggest advantage is the fact that we get to practice with a scout team and not have to do crossover work like we had to do before the Clemson game.
All right, next question, we're going to go all the way in the back on the camera platform.
Hey, gentlemen. Max Cepeda, Walter Cronkite Sports Network. We are currently now in an era of college football where bowl games, you need to win multiple bowl games in order to win a national championship. In decades past, a bowl game was used just as a celebration, just as a way to celebrate a season, celebrate a single season with a single team. For both of you, starting with Coach Sark, what does it necessarily mean for you guys now to address your team in today's college football of how to celebrate a season in a bowl game, now knowing that you will have to play in multiple in order to win a national championship?
Well, you know, college football has been very unique over the years, and you got to think it wasn't that long ago there was no national championship game. You went to the bowl game that you were assigned to, and everybody won it or they lost, and then you all decided who the national champion was. And then we went to a 2-team kind of, they played for a national championship, and then we went to 4 teams, and now we're at 12 teams. And ironically, we were really the only sport, us in boxing, that didn't have a tournament, right? Everybody else always had a tournament, whether it was Major League Baseball, basketball, football, whatever it was, the NCAA basketball tournament. So I do think we're evolving in a way that is healthy. And I think then that the responsibility then falls on us as coaches and staffs to make sure that we are enjoying our time with our players and celebrating a successful season. Because before, I had a lot of good teams that didn't win their bowl game. That doesn't mean we didn't have a successful season. We didn't celebrate that team. But now it's just part of a tournament that we're trying to be the last one standing at the end.
All right, Coach Dillingham.
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of that. I mean, for us, we got to enjoy the moments throughout the process. You got to take it all in, but you also got to be able to get rid of those moments. So we got to enjoy the moment of being at the Peach Bowl and being welcomed and the guys enjoying the event they put on last night for us, and then get back to work. We got to enjoy the game, and if you win, enjoy it. And then you got to get back to work. But I think that's no different than a normal regular season when you're playing really good teams. Now you're just doing it at a bigger stakes. You're doing it in a playoff. But you still have to appreciate the fact that you're playing in one of the most iconic games in the history of college football. And you've got to appreciate that. You've got to take that for what it's worth. You've got to enjoy that moment. And then you've got to be able to move on that moment when that moment ends and then restart yourself.
All right, next question, front row right here in the corner.
Danny Davis of the Austin American States, and both Steve and Kenny, you guys both had an all-conference tight end on your roster this year. How important is that position, those guys, to what you guys want to do on offense?
Yeah, I think if you actually statistically, there was a couple GMs that I knew in the league, asking them what was one of the greatest correlators to actually success, and it goes quarterback, and then ironically, there was a period of time where it was tight end. And that was the second greatest, in some systems, right, systems that we're similar to. That was the next biggest piece to having a successful offense in terms of the most value. And I know there's a period of time where the tight ends were devalued, but I actually think if you're a run, play, action football team, very similar to both of us. Those guys have to control the middle of the field, not just in the vertical passing game, the intermediate passing game, but also the screen game. And if you have a guy who's dynamic with the ball, who can block the C gap and also control in between the hashes consistently, vertically, intermediately, and at the line of scrimmage in the screen game, that is a weapon. And for us, I think both of our systems really play into that position and play into somebody who's not just good blocking, not just good down the field, but good with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, I'd reiterate a lot of the same. I've answered this before. I would say after the quarterback in our system, probably the most important position is the tight end because of what we ask of him to do. From a formational standpoint, a blocking standpoint, a route tree standpoint, the multiplicity of the things that the tight end has to do in our systems make him extremely valuable. And when you have a good one, I think that makes our lives a lot easier from a play caller perspective.
All right, next question, 3/4 of the way on the back on the left.
Craig Way, Longhorn Radio Network from Learfield. Coach Dillingham, wanted to get your thoughts on the progress, the development of Sam Levitt, starting from the time he arrived on campus. What were your expectations for him, and how has he obviously progressed to what you've hoped he would become?
Yeah, obviously he's a really good athlete. So when you get really good athletes when they're young, they want to scramble. They want to make every play with their legs. And I think one of his, not just the mental side of understanding protections. You don't just have to run away from the guy that makes you hot and make him miss like you do in high school, right? Because you're a better athlete than most people. He started to understand protections. He started to understand hots and to use his athleticism when it's needed, not when he wants to. And there's a big difference there. And I think throughout the season, he's really gotten better at when to use his athleticism, when to be ultra aggressive, when to not, when to change pros, which is part of being a freshman, is to help protect yourself. And has he exceeded my expectations? Yeah, I would say he has. And if I said he didn't, I'd be lying to you. He's done such a great job as a freshman to come in. And what people don't see is how hard he works behind the scenes. And any great quarterback is a great worker. And he's an unbelievable worker. He's an unbelievable person. He's super intelligent. He's super competitive. He was in the game room the other day. We had the event that started at 7. He was playing somebody in ping pong. Then he started shooting hoops. I left. I came back at 9:50, and I'm walking in with my wife. And I said, watch, I guarantee you Sam's one of the people left in here doing something competitive. And she's like, no way. He's over there still shooting hoops. And that's what has got him to this point, is he's wired in a way that he just wants to be the best all the time. All the time. And he has confidence in him wanting to be the best all the time.
All right, same spot.
Roger Wallace from NBC in Austin. Sark, what are some of the areas that maybe you weren't as sure about going into the season that have turned into strengths to help you get to this point?
Yeah, I think naturally the depth on the defensive line, anytime you lose the quality of players that we lost a year ago with Murphy and Sweat, and I think we felt good about Alfred and Vernon coming in, but what would that depth look like at that position? And I think the additions of Bill Norton and Jermaine Lelay have been huge for us. I think the development of an Alex January where he's at, and then on the edges, you never know what your transfers might look like. I think the addition of Trey Moore has been tremendous for us. The evolution of Colin Simmons, that it's just really supplied us a lot of depth. And we feel very confident in our two deep on our defensive front with Sorrell and Burke on the other side. So that was probably the biggest question mark coming into the season. I'd say the second one was probably in the secondary. Making the move, putting Jade back at corner and putting Gilbo back in at star. The addition of Makuba and what that would look like with Taff and Derek Williams and Jelani McDonald and having that depth there. And so those two positions were probably the biggest question marks of what is it all going to play out looking like. And it's turned out pretty good for us. And we've endured some injuries there. Obviously, D-Will getting, he's out for the year, but the growth of Jelani McDonald and that three-headed monster and the rotation those guys have there. So in the end, it's worked out well. I think that's the value of the portal. You're able to kind of stop gap where you have some depth deficiencies, which we had, and those two things have worked out for us.
All right, we'll go far right, second row.
Chip Brown of Horns 24/7. For both coaches, if you could just give us maybe your best example of your quarterback's leadership this season and how they've evolved as leaders.
I would say for us it was the Kansas game. We scored. We went down. Kansas came back and scored on a big play. And, we still are, we're feeling ourselves in terms of where are we as a program? Can we win close games? Can we not? And usually that's the biggest hurdle when you take over a program is how do you win games late? And how do you win close games? And part of that is players that thrive in those moments. And our quarterback went up to our guys with a smile on his face, and he just said, "You guys ready to go score?" Just like that. And that was the moment where everybody, I think, on our offense was looking at each other like, okay, we believe we're going to win. But when that guy comes over that calm as a freshman, they were all saying, well, what is he going to be like in this moment? When he comes over and he kind of cracks like a subtle, confident joke of, are you guys ready to go score? That was the moment, and then we let our team down through a touchdown pass to Jordan Tyson. He let him down. That was the moment that was like, okay, he plays his best in these biggest moments. He loves the attention on him in these moments, and those are what the best quarterbacks do. They thrive in those moments. That's when I really felt like his leadership took a next step and the team bought into him.
Yeah, and ours was a really subtle one that people, I don't know how many people even remember the play, but it was a 4th and 2 at Arkansas. And, we're not a big quarterback run zone read team, but sometimes we'll call them in critical moments. And we called it, and Quinn pulled it, and probably could have very easily went right, went left, got the first down, and the game would have been over. And this dude decides to try to run the safety over, and it's a massive collision. And he gets the first down, and probably the emotion that came out of Quinn and the emotion that came off of our sideline for Quinn were, to me, really indicative of how much the team values him and how much he wants to win for the team. And I don't know if that's a great sign of leadership, not to answer the question, Chip, because I think his true leadership showed up when he was out and Arch was starting, and the support he gave Arch and to be with him all week long and on the sidelines to help him play the best that he could play. To me, that was the real leader in Quinn coming out. But I love that moment against Arkansas because there was some real emotion that came out of that play for him and for our team.
All right, next we'll go 4th row on the right here.
Hey, Steve, Cedric Golden, Austin American Statesman. You're losing a ton of guys just like last year to the draft, and there are no guarantees you get back to the Elite Eight. They don't just give that away. With this senior-laden locker room, how much do you see that sense of urgency and opportunity to make history if you can keep this going?
Yeah, I mean, I think champagne problems, right? One year we go to the Final Four and we're a play away from playing for a national championship. We break the school record for number of draft picks, and well, how are we gonna do it again? And we come back in this year, and of the 4 teams that were in the Final Four last year, we were the only one invited to be part of the 12, the new expanded playoff. So it's a really hard thing to do, and we appreciate the work that our guys put in to get to that point. But I think as much as we focus on our older players, we challenge our older players on how they're part of the development for our younger players. Just like those older players were part of their development. And what does leadership look like? What does accountability look like? What does work ethic look like here? And, my goal is that we don't go anywhere, but that takes a lot of hard work. That takes dedication. You just don't rinse and repeat and do it all over again because each team takes on a personality of its own. But I'll say about this veteran group, I don't think any of them forget being in New Orleans at the end of that game last year. And I don't think any of them forgot all off season long. And the obsession that they've had with getting back to this stage, I think is one that has fueled us through a fair amount of adversity that has gotten us back here. Do I think we're going to have to play some of our best football down the stretch? There's no question, and it's going to start on the first. I mean, we're going to have to play arguably our best, if not one of our best games this season. But that's the challenge that we're all striving for and working towards of how do we all put our best foot forward so that collectively as a team we can play one of our better games.
All right, next question all the way in the back right.
Kevin Sherrington, Dallas Morning News. Kenny, could you tell me, looking at your players this week, listening to them, they seem awfully confident and loose going into this game. And I'm wondering if that's exactly how you would want them to act.
I think our players are just being themselves. And I think a lot of times, there's a lot of how are you supposed to talk to the media? What are you supposed to say? And I just firmly believe in say what you believe. And I'm not going to try to prevent our players from saying what they believe. And if our players believe they're the best, there's probably a reason why Scat had 0 offers and went to Sac State when nobody believed in him, and then came to Arizona State with not much competition for him, and then nobody thought he was on an NFL draft board going into the year. If he didn't have that own self-belief in himself, that he believes he's the best, then who else would have his entire life? So when he makes comments like that, when people ask him a question and he gives you the truth of what he believes, because his belief is what got him here, and then people twist it on him as if he's being cocky or confident, that's not the nature of what he's trying to say. What he's trying to say is, my entire life I was the only one who believed in me. I'm not changing that. So now if you ask me the question and I give you a real answer, it kind of gets twisted into this cockiness or confidence, when the reality is, without him believing that his entire life, he wouldn't be in the position he is. And I would say that with him and Sam, who was not heavily recruited, 3-star recruit out of high school, pretty under-recruited for where he was, didn't play last year. Same kind of thing for him too, is those guys have a lot of self-belief because there was a point with the chip on their shoulder that they were one of the only people that believed in themselves. And then when they get put in a situation and they're asked a question and they say the truth of what they believe, if you're a competitor and you don't believe you're the best, are you really a competitor? Like, that's what you want to do. So I think just the honesty sometimes in today's media is fun for people because they can take and run with it, and that's what they should do. Everybody should take those comments and run with it because that's what's fun, that's what sells. But those are just two really, really competitive people. It's nothing about the opponent. It's about their own self-belief. I mean, Sam thinks he could probably beat Michael Jordan in basketball. I mean, that's Sam, right? Scat thinks he's probably the greatest running back of all time because that's Scat. And I think that's what makes him unique, and sometimes when you verbalize those things, just what you internally believe, it gets twisted in a negative light. But I'm just happy that we have those guys in our team because they're ultra competitors, and I have their back.
Jordan now or Jordan then?
Jordan then, probably. Sam's pretty confident, and but like I said, if you're a competitor and you take the court or take the field in anything, and you don't want to be the best or compete versus the best, then something's wrong. I mean, that's the definition of competition.
Yeah. Okay, next question, far left corner.
Chris Cartman, Son of a Source. Just building off that, Kenny, is that the thing that's enabled this team to accomplish what it has? And is there a boundary at which point a team can become overly cocky or too confident? And for Coach Sark, how have you managed over the years confidence versus overconfidence, or observed that within your teams?
Yeah, for us, I always talk about, if you're confident versus cocky goes in your preparation. If your confidence in yourself starts having you prepare less than you have prepared, well, be prepared to be humbled, because now you're letting it affect you. If you go about your business, and everybody should have a self-belief, whether you verbalize it to the media or not, everybody going into this game on both teams should feel like they're the very best. And if you don't believe that you can win the football game, I mean, we're 14-point dogs. We're facing a team that was picked to win the national championship preseason by a lot of people. And if you don't have that belief that you can win the football game, if you don't go that you believe you can match up, then you have no chance. So like I said, I think sometimes in today's nature, when we put a microphone in front of kids, they say what they're believing, and that gets pushed in a negative light, when in reality, they're just saying what everybody would be thinking if they were in their shoes. Maybe they just said it out loud. And people aren't supposed to say the actual response to the question. People want us to respond to the questions in the perfect answer that is supposed to be responded to, not the actual truth nowadays. And I think sometimes the 18 to 23-year-olds just say what they believe, and that sometimes gets twisted. Both those kids are incredible kids. I do believe that's a reason we're where we're at, is we got a lot of guys with a chip on their shoulder who were counted out. We're underdogs, and we're still underdogs. We're still counted out. But that shouldn't change your own self-belief in yourself.
I think from our end, as a coach, our job is to build confidence in our players, right? Whether that's through the physical ability, the mental approach, the emotional approach. That's our job, is to build confidence. And And then you have to continue to build that confidence through their preparation week to week to week, and then through their execution. It's one thing to be really confident and you don't play well, and then you're just still confident again. It's, well, why didn't I play well? What do I need to alter to get that back? And so, again, there's obviously times when everybody gets humbled. We all do. As coaches, players, it is what it is. And the self-reflection, I think, is really important. Constructive criticism is really important so that we can continue to build and get better, because change is inevitable. We're either going to get better or we're going to get worse. We're never going to remain the same. And our job as coaches is to put a team out there that believes in what we're doing, but it's not a false sense of belief, that it's true belief because of the preparation and the plan and their brothers and the guys next to them, and he's going to do his job, so on and so forth. And so, but that's the life of a coach, right? That's what we do every day. That's why we get to, be around young people and try to instill things in them, not only for this game, not only for this season, but for life, about how they go about their business throughout life, even when adversity strikes. That's okay. How am I going to get on the other side of it and keep moving forward?
All right, we've got time for 3 or 4 more. We're going to go next to here, front row in the middle.
Gabby Chernoff, Sun Devil Source. Coach Kenny, Jake Plummer named an honorary captain for the game. What is his presence meant for the team throughout the entire course of the season, and what does it mean to have him back here this weekend as kind of a full circle moment for the program?
Yeah, it's awesome for the program. I mean, we were talking about Coach Sark and I were talking about it. They were in the same class, I just learned, coming out, and we were talking about how the last time Arizona State played in a game of this magnitude was Jake Plummer was under center, literally under center, back then. And he was under center, and it was, he's what Arizona State, him, Pat Tillman, that era before, or the last time that, we've reached these heights. And having him back involved, having him around, having him want to be around, and that era people want to be around, hopefully it's infectious, and hopefully it continues on the next, few years, the next few decades. And we can kind of put a string of years and seasons and decades together of really good competitive ASU football.
All right, next we'll go over here on the right, third row.
Devin Henderson, Blaze Sports. For both coaches, you have been on either side of having a bye week in the playoff, and kind of talk about the pros and cons of whether you'd rather, keep the momentum and play a game in the middle, or have that extra rest and time to prepare.
Well, I think that's a pretty easy one to answer. A year ago, I'd say it was great having the bye, because that's the situation we're in. This year, we didn't have a bye, so this is great too. I'm going to tell you exactly what our team needs to hear, so it is what it is.
Yeah, I have no clue. I haven't been in both settings, so we'll find out tomorrow at about 5 o'clock if I like the bye or not. But at the end of the day, we're about to go play with 8 teams left. If you can't get excited to play, if there's an excuse for why you didn't play to the level of you played, something's wrong. At the end of the day, 2 really good football teams are going to go play each other, regardless of the bye or not.
All right, fourth row on the left right here.
Terry Middleton from Horns Illustrated. This question is for both Sarkisian and Coach Dillingham. So this week, the National Football Foundation and the College Hall of Fame put out a list of those that they're honoring for their role in college football and also for future generations. And you two are the future generation. So I'm curious, is there anyone in your past that not only taught you about football, but about carrying this legacy forward, and how do you have that conversation with your players?
For me, obviously, Mike Norvell is one of the guys in the profession that's one of my mentors. And he's just a guy that I kind of look up to from that perspective. Obviously, he's young as well, so I don't know if that helps with the question. But ironically, I don't know as many coaches or guys that have been super successful I haven't been blessed to maybe be around some of the older guys who have done it. I've studied from afar. I don't read books, but I listen to audiobooks, and I've listened to a lot of those guys' books and try to take in the Pete Carroll stuff and Bill Belichick stuff and as much stuff as I could acquire and learn. So I don't know if there's a specific guy in that era that's being inducted, but I do know there's a lot of really successful people, and the one thing I have learned through all those people is they've all done it their own way. And there's no cookie cutter way to do this. You got to be genuine to yourself, and you got to take things you learn and make it your own.
I thought you were going to tell us we were getting honored, Terry. I didn't. I said, where's Bianco? He didn't tell me this stuff. Anyhow, mine's pretty easy, right? I mean, I spent 3 years with Nick Saban, and I don't think there's been a better ambassador for the transition of college football than Nick Saban. And so the life lessons that you learn managing a program at a high level, how you treat people, how you develop your players, not only on the field, off the field, that's the legacy, right? It's easy to look at the national championship trophies or the Heisman trophies and think that's the legacy. But I think there's a standard in which he did the work that he did, whether it was at Alabama or at LSU, that's what you strive for, because I think that's what people remember about him. He stood his ground on issues that he believed in. He developed young people. He won football games. He adapted with the times. He went from I formation, run the ball, to RPO-driven quarterback runs. He's forever evolved, and so that was the legacy, that I think he left upon us. And it was just, how many notes could you take, and then how can we try to do the same thing here with some of the lessons learned there?
All right, we've got time, I think, for two more. Next, we're going to go all the way back on the left.
Tom Forbes with C-Trace Sports. Kenny, what's a similarity and a difference between Frank Kush's coaching style and your coaching style, and how has that shaped your success this season?
I wasn't around really with Frank Kush. I'm a little younger than that, but I do remember just the demand he put on his players. I would say, we may get, I think nowadays, he had so much success because the standard that he had, and I think that's every good coach has a high standard. I would say the difference is how you get to that standard nowadays is probably a little different than how you could get to that standard back then. Frank Kush has built the foundation for Arizona State football, and to even be mentioned in the same sentence with him is an honor.
All right, I guess we'll take our final question here, all the way back on the right.
Sam Kahn from The Athletic. This is for Kenny. Your first year in the Big 12, I'm curious what you thought of that league from a competitive standpoint, and do you think your team's performance in the playoff could or should affect the Big 12's perception in the playoff format moving forward?
Yeah, for us, obviously, the Big 12, really competitive league, really fun environments to be in. It was fun to travel to some of those environments and play some really, really good football teams. Obviously, I couldn't answer the second question. That's way out of my scope. I'm not that smart. I just know how to run power right and counter left, which is what Gus Malzahn taught me years ago. So I'll stick to the football. I'll let all the politicians and all those people stick to the who gets in the playoff and who's not. And, if we win enough football games, we'll be in. If we don't win enough football games, we won't. And if you get blessed to play another football game, you pour everything you have into it. And if it's the last one you play, then you should have won more games and repeat. So that's how I look at it. But I'm not going to get into the details on that.
All right, gentlemen, that'll be our final question. Coaches, if you would, we're going to pose for a couple of photos with the trophy. If you guys would stand up and flank that. Percy and Gary, please.